دایی یه فرصت خوب حالا پشت مدافع خداداد عزیزی توی دروازه گل برای ایران خداداد عزیزی باز هم روی زمین گشت سردار آزمون به توی دروازه سردار آزمون گل به نام آزمون و برای ایران
بزنه کریم انصاری گل توی دروازه کریم انصاری دروازه پرتغال باز شد
علی دایی سام توپ توی دروازه
یه اشتباه حرکت از کوچان نژاد فرصت برای کوچان نژاد توی دروازه گل برای ایران.
Welcome back to Bezan podcast. I'm Arya Allahverdi, joined by my good friends Pezhman and Daniel. Guys, how you both doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Hope you guys doing well.
Doing great, man. Thank you.
Excellent. Glad to have you back on your second podcast, Daniel. I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come back on. And Pezhman, I've not had you on for a little while, so it's good to have you back as well. Today's episode is analysis of the Iran versus Syria match that we played on Thursday at 8:30 p.m. local time at Azadi Stadium. We'll also, before that, we'll speak about the squad that was announced by Federation, called up by Dragan Skočić. Team Melli are looking for their first 3 points in Group A. As I said, against Syria, we already beat Syria 3-0 in a friendly match earlier this year in March.
تیم ایران به سمت دروازه سوریه میزنه روی چارچوب و توی دروازه اولی گل بازی رو همینجا میبینیم که کنعانی زادگان به ثمر.
The goals in that game were scored by Kanani, Sardar Osman and Karim Ansari Fard. We also have Saeed Joudeh, a Syrian football journalist. He will preview the Syrian national team. Remember, we're also going to have an article out before the match, previewing the match. All the sort of information you want regarding the match times will all be on the article on our website, globazanpodcast.com. We'll also do Twitter spaces for both matches before and after the game. Make sure you join us on that. We'll speak about the lineup, reaction to the match afterwards. And finally, we're also going to have really big interviews coming up next month. So stay tuned on all our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as we'll put out some more podcasts coming up very soon. Guys, we got a big game on Thursday, first game of the group stage, final round of World Cup qualifiers. We beat Syria in March, but we had Syria also in our last World Cup qualification under Carlos Queiroz. We didn't beat them in the 2 matches. We actually drew the first game 0-0. I believe that game was played in Malaysia in mud. And then we had a second leg game in Tehran.
And it's seen through. Incredible finish. Omar Al-Somar gets the goal to level the game. And that is the end of the match. It has ended here with an amazing draw for Syria.
That ended 2-2. That was the last game of the qualifying matches. However, we're playing them now, and a 27-man squad has been called up by Skočić. So first question I'm going to ask it is for Pezhman. The question actually comes from Instagram, from Kasra at Kasmensa. He asks, why isn't Allahyar Sayyadmanesh in the squad?
That's a good question because he's a young, promising player that's been playing well in his Ukrainian club, along with another Iranian, Shahzadi. If he doesn't start, he's a substitute more or less every game. They really like him there. He's been progressing a lot, but we must not forget that he's still a young player, even though he's playing in Europe now for the last year. He don't need to get rushed into the national team because at the very best, he might get some minutes here and there. But remember that Sardar Osman was a big talent as well, and many people thought that he would be in the 2014 squad for the World Cup. He wasn't. But look at him now. He's arguably one of the best Iranian strikers ever, and he's doing well in his club. So Allahyar needs to keep progressing, keep playing, keep developing, have a professional mindset, and I'm sure he will be in that national team squad in the future.
Excellent. Daniel, anything to add to that?
Yes, well, I think Allahyar should have been in the squad because, in my opinion, the coach have to think about the present and build the future at the same time. Even if Allahyar didn't play or is playing only the last 10 minutes, he needs to be confronted to the pressure, the expectations, and to experience that. Taking him, if we go to the next World Cup and he's in the list, he will see what it is to play a worker game, or just feel the pressure and the expectations in there. He's doing very well. I think he really deserves a call up. And since Kaveh is injured, I really expected that he would be the replacement. But he didn't. He didn't call him up. And as Pezhman said, he has to be patient because he's only 20. It's like we can compare it to Azmoun case at the 2014 World Cup. Azmoun was 19. And we all know that he has talent. And he's proving it, I think, every day that goes, he's doing better and better. So his time will come. But if I was at Skočić place, which I'm not, I would have called him up.
For me, it's an interesting situation because Zorya Luhansk actually announced that he was called up. And that's why everyone's very surprised that he's not actually in the squad, because he was announced to be called up and we even put it on our Twitter. But what happened was within the last 3 days, Skočić actually phoned Allahyar Sayyadmanesh and just explained to him that there was no space for him in the team just now. Now, to me, it's a bit of a surprise. The reason why I say that, and I take Pezhman's point, I take his point, but I think the situation was different back then, because I think back then we had Goalkeepers, we had Allahyar. There wasn't really a need for a striker back then the same way it is now, because now we're playing with a front two most of the time, and first game we're actually going to miss Osman against Syria, so we do need a striker. Kaveh is always injured, so that means we're only left with Taremi and Allahyar for the first game. That's my first point. The second point I'm going to make is the fact that it sends a wrong impression. Why are you calling him up and then saying no to him afterwards? He's a young kid, you need to be a little bit more clear about your plan. As a coach, you don't want to send the wrong message to a young player. And on top of everything, he's called up Yasin Salmani. Now, I'm not against it. I think it's a brilliant move by Skočić to call him up. 19 years old, midfielder playing for Sepahan. He's been fantastic this season. He's in the squad. You've also got Allahyar Dani from Fulad, right back, who's again been absolutely fantastic. I think he deserves to be in the squad. For me, he's one of the best right backs that Iran have just now. But he's also a young player, and then you've got a player like Sayyadmanesh who's scoring a lot of goals now. He's making a lot of assists week in, week out in Ukraine, but he's not being selected when he was already selected. I think that's a little bit of a shame and a missed opportunity by the coaching staff, especially the fact that he's called up players in other positions at that age. So,
yeah, but one thing is interesting here, maybe a bit worrying. As you said, Osman is missing the first game. Kaveh is injured and missed both games.
Yep.
So we have 3 forwards: Osman, Taremi, and Soifat. Actually 4, to be honest, with Qaidi. He is even behind Qaidi now, which makes him like the 5th option. That's a bit worrying for him. Maybe not for a national team, because they are all solid players. So I'm like, he doesn't fit in this squad. Which player would I like to replace him with? Not, of course, Taremi. And Soifat, he's still, I think, good enough to be in the squad, and he's a decent goal scorer. I think he's maybe one of the best, actually, to be honest. It would be like between him and Qaidi. And for me, I understand that he chose Qaidi because I think that he maybe got a little bit of connection with Iran and Iran players that play in Iran, although Qaidi just recently left for Shabab or Al-Ahli in the UAE. So, as you mentioned, the big mistake here was from Iran telling the club that they want him for the national team, and the club announcing that, which is maybe something that they shouldn't do. But of course, they're happy that they have some national team players in that club.
Well, look, I think we kind of we find that to be a common occurrence with the federation that we have. There's always something going wrong communication wise, and that's probably a reason why players like Shahab Zahedi, etc., get upset about the list, and they go to Instagram and they say blah blah blah. So there needs to be more clear communication between the players. Next thing we're going to speak about are the injuries. We have a lot of injuries in this squad. Praliganji is obviously got out with an ACL injury, as well as Arif Gholami, Majid Hosseini as well. So that's 3 centre backs who have been part of the last few squads. As a result, Arif Agassi, who has also been part of the last few squads, has come in now. Recently got a move to Esteghlal, as well as his teammate now at Esteghlal, Siavash Yazdani, who is part of the squad under Mark Wilmots. So emergency options have to replace Praliganji and Majid Hosseini. Daniel, what do you think of that?
Well, about the injuries, Praliganji unfortunately get often injured. I really hope in the future it will be solved, because he's at the best age as a footballer, but we can't use him, and that's a pity. Majid Hosseini, I hope he will get back to fitness, because he had one season with many injuries again, and he needs to be fit and to play, because he has I think the talent to be in this squad. And I think Skočić has his pair of center backs, Kanoni and Khalilzadeh will be the ones. He had to call some emergency replacement, but anyway, they won't play, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. Pezhman, I want to ask you something regarding the team as well. Obviously, Dragan Skočić and Bayit Hashemian, the assistant manager, are both away from the national team with coronavirus. They haven't yet tested negative as of recording. They may do in the next few days. On top of that, we've also missing our captain, Ehsan Safi. So a lot of the core leadership of the team is out just now. How do you think that can affect the team?
Good question. I mean, this squad have two days all in all to prepare with each other, which is a really short time to get anything out of it. So I think the important thing is for the players and for whoever's taking care of them is that they already know what they need to do. And this is maybe something good that can come out of this. Is most of the players, or more or less all of them, were called up in the last camp, or at least all of the starting players. They already know what to do, hopefully. I don't think that there will be any major changes of style and tactics and formation. So they need to keep that momentum that they had from the last games in the summer and keep working on that instead of, drilling something new. So the trainings that we see now, the pictures, it's just warming up and relaxing and getting back to what they were good at, instead of having a long camp and doing, really hard and intensive training and talking a lot about tactics. So that maybe, so not having the coach there maybe isn't that bad, or make that big of a difference. Yeah. But I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, look, I think right now Mario Tot, the other assistant manager, seems to be doing a good job with the players. I think he's He's obviously used to be Dinamo Zagreb head coach, so he knows how to lead a team. And I think with Karim Bagheri there, knowing the players, I don't think it's too much of an issue, but hopefully we can get Vahid and Dragan back as soon as possible. Gonna come on to the goalkeepers. Obviously, we have 3 goalkeepers now playing in Europe, which is a first for the Iranian national team. We have, of course, Bernard Van made his move to Boavista. We have Amir Abzadeh made his move to Spain in Ponferradina, and Payam Niazman went to Portugal as well with Portimonense, all of them moving this summer. Pezhman, what is your thought of that? First of all, we've got 3 top goalkeepers, all of them at the top of their game, physically and technically top goalkeepers. How do you think that's going to impact the team?
That's really fun, and I hope Niazman, because he haven't played a game yet, right? And also Beran Vand. Yeah. I hope they will get some minutes in their clubs. Otherwise, it's a bit worrying having 2 good goalkeepers in their prime age of both developing and being at their very best, not getting any minutes. As I said in most of the times, I believe Allahverdi should be number 1. And I think now, listen, maybe we should save this part now for later on. I believe that if Beyran Van will keep playing on the bench and maybe Niazman as well, then Skočić don't have any choice other than to play Allahverdi. Then maybe he will get loaned back to Persepolis and get his number 1 spot in the national team back. But I don't think that's Allahverdi. I think that Allahverdi will be number 1 in the World Cup if this continues.
Yeah. Daniel, who would your number 1 be?
Well, for now, I think it's Beyran Van. And even if I really like Allahverdi, for me, for the national team, Beyran Van is the number 1 now. He proved it. But Allahverdi is knocking at the door. He's performing well with his new club. The 3 first games were good. He did many great things in Maritimo, and he has qualities. He's a different type of goalkeeper. Like he's good with his feet. He's smaller, and he has a lot of confidence with the ball. He's an interesting goalkeeper, and I think he will continue knocking at the door. And as Pezhman said, well, if Beyran Van is not playing enough, maybe he can take the first spot. Actually, it's a really good thing that we have 2 or even 3 good goalkeepers, because even if for now I think Beyran Van deserves the first place, even if he gets injured or anything, we have a good one knocking at the door next.
Yeah, exactly. Personally, I would go with Beyran Van to start with, but 100% Allahverdi is doing fantastic in Spain. I think there's no doubt in Allahverdi's quality, but I think Beyran Van for now, for continuity after June matches, he played 4 games in goals. Well, there's 1 game that was given to Allahverdi, but I think he will play in goals on Thursday.
One more thing.
Yeah,
this is exactly the way that Beyran Van became number 1 goalkeeper. Haghighi was number 1. Beyran Van was doing good in Iran before he went to Persepolis. Was it in which team was it? I don't remember. Was it in PAS? No, never mind.
Naft Tehran.
Naft Tehran. He played good there and was ready and really knocking on the door. At the same time, Haghighi was the number 1, but he didn't get any play time. He was clubless and he was on the bench, and it took a long time for him to find a club. And finally, Kayal said, "You know what? It's enough. You haven't played a whole season for maybe your entire year." That's what's happened. That's how Beyran Van became number 1. And this is exactly the same way he's losing it.
I get what you're saying, but I just don't think the quality of goalkeeper is comparable right now. But I get what you're saying. It's a good point.
No. I agree. Beyran Van is not as good as Allahverdi. and you guys don't agree with me. So
okay, moving on to defenders. Defenders, we had, of course, Khalilzadeh called up from Al Rayyan. Kanani made his move to Allahyar this summer as well. Arif Aghassi mentioned, and Siavash Yazdani, the 4 centre backs. Fullbacks, Moharami and Hardani are the 2 right backs. The left backs, we actually have 3 that were named. So Milad Mohammadi, who is currently unattached with no club, Omid Nur Afghan, and Jafar Salmani. So we have 3 left backs who have been named, but of course, Vahid Amiri can also play at left back. Guys, I mean, personally, for me, I think it's just quite unnecessary to have that many players that can play in one position, especially when you've got a player like Jafar Salmani who's not even playing for his club, and he just moved to Estella. So I just don't get why he's in the squad. I just don't understand it. Like, for me, Milad Mohammadi is a left back. Noor Afghan's been playing a left back for like over a season now. And he's been fantastic. He actually got in team of the season as a left back in the PGPL. And Vahid Amiri has been playing left back for Persepolis all season, most of the season anyway. I just don't get why Salmani is being called up. I don't know. Help me out here, Daniel. What do you think?
Well, actually, Salmani can play in different positions, right?
Yeah, but then you've got players like, you got tons of players on the wings.
Sure.
So I don't really get why there's a need for him.
And he played right back once too, no?
Yeah, exactly. But then again, you have 2 right backs.
yeah, of course.
I mean? So it's like...
But yeah, actually, it's a bit weird. We even have, as you said, Amiri that can play as a left back. He played there very well last time. Unfortunately, he got injured. And it's quite strange that he decided to replace Kaveh Rezai by Milad Mohammadi. And as you said, Jafar Salmani doesn't deserve a call up, but maybe Skočić, like we think maybe he will play him or play all the fullbacks at their post, but maybe they will play somewhere else. We don't know. But actually,
maybe. But the thing is,
it's quite square.
It's surprising, and I'll come to Pezhman, because, for example, let's just if I was to give it a bit of logic, for example, Noor Afghan can play in midfield, but then he's called up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's called up 5 center midfielders, so there's not a need for another midfielder anyway. So even if Noor Afghan was called up as a midfielder, there wouldn't be a need for him, because he's already called up Nick Nafs, Salak, Muhammad Karimi, Ahmad Nurlahi, and Izzatullahi. So it's a bit of a useless call up, if I'm being honest with you.
I think Judeh had some good points that some players maybe can play in different positions in the national team here, rather than do it in the club. Other than that, yeah, it looks kind of weird, but I think we have to wait and see what play.
Yeah,
sorry, edit it out. What position they will play in the national team?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, just if I was to go off that, I'm really happy that Saleh Hardani has been called up. I think Hardani is a fantastic player. If you've not seen him in Fulad have done really well under Nek Poonam. And Saleh Hardani, the right back, has been one of the key players in that team, in that defense, alongside Arif Aghassi, who's one of the centre backs, who's been called up. 2 of them have just been absolutely fantastic, and I'm very, very happy to see Saleh in this team. He's an unknown player for sure, but if you watch him play, you'll know why he's been selected for this squad, because he is really, really talented. Moving on to the midfielders, we have, as I mentioned before, Izzatullahi, Nurullahi, Salak, Vahid Amiri, Nick Nafs, and Muhammad Karimi. Right off the bat, for me, Muhammad Karimi was a bit of a surprise call-up, but I actually been wanting to see him in the national team squad for quite a long time. 2 years ago, Muhammad Karimi was the top assister in the PGPL, did really well, but then he moved on after that season with many, many injuries. He didn't really have much playing time, but this season he's been fantastic alongside Hoysafi in that midfield for Sepahan. So I'm really happy to see him Also, Zober Niknafs, another player who's been at full odd. For me, a bit of a surprise selection. Niknafs is a decent, hard-working midfielder. I just don't think he's national team standard. You know, it may be because Ali Karimi isn't available, because obviously he's injured. But again, I just don't see the necessity in bringing in another centre midfielder when you've already got 4 there who can play quite well. And then Milad Salak, who I thought did really well for us in the last matches. Pezhman, what are your thoughts on the selection?
I actually like that there are some players from inside of Iran that's done well, because although, you know, we tend to say that the Iranian league is bad and stuff like that, but if you're still doing good and if you're still playing good, you should be given the chance. And my answer about the question of the squad, it will be the same, and just as Daniel said before, like, just because they play at a certain position doesn't mean that they will necessarily have to play it in the national team. And maybe he just wants some more competition to the other players. And it was strange, you know, one game Azatali wasn't called up, the other game he was like captain. So maybe he's putting some pressure on the other players and saying, like, your place is never sure. You can never be 100% that you can do whatever you want and still be in the national team.
Daniel, I know you're not particularly familiar with some of these PGPL players, but Izzatullahi, for me, is a player who's been part of the national team for a good number of years now. How vital is his role now in the national team?
Well, Saeed, I think he should be called up every time and play every game, because he's such a good player. Like, he only needed to play full season till last season, and he did so in Denmark. Now we expect him like to do maybe one more season there, but then to move to a better club. I think, like you said, both interesting things. Arya, you said that you don't understand why, like, he called up players that would never play and that he would never call again. And when the likes of Ehsan Safi or Ali Karimi will come back. And on the other hand, like, I completely agree with that. On the other hand, Pezhman maybe is right. Maybe Skočić is thinking that they played well, they performed, and maybe it's the only time he can give them a chance. He's not taking a huge risk because we're playing Syria and Iraq. Like, it's not we don't have to take it for granted, but you know, we're not playing South Korea, so maybe that's why he's trying this now.
Yeah, could be. Okay, moving on to the more exciting part of the field, you could say, is the attacking midfielders and wingers. We've called up Alias Javanbakhsh, who moved to Feyenoord, Salman Kudus, currently at Brentford, playing in the Premier League, Ali Zadeh, who unfortunately is going to stay in Charleroi for one more season, but he's also called up. Mehdi Qaidi moved to Shabab Al Ahli in UAE, Mehdi Torabi at Persepolis, and Yassine Salmani, 19-year-old attacking midfielder from Sepahan. He's been talked about a lot over the last months or so on social media. People are going crazy about him, and no one was actually expecting him to get called up. But Yassine Salmani, who, as I've confirmed on Twitter, we are actually going to do an interview with him in a couple of weeks' time. But he's called up. I don't know if you guys know much about him, Pezhman.
Sure, I know, but I think you are the one that know most. So
yeah,
maybe tell the listeners who he is and why we should follow him.
Well, I mean, first thing is for sure, the national team has missed a kind of natural attacking midfielder for a long time. Dejarga, Shojai were kind of the kind of prototype kind of guy in that role that we've not had for a long time since they retired from the national team, or they didn't retire, but they didn't get called up. Salman Kudus is the really only natural player in that role. For me, Yassine Salmani is a proper attacking midfielder with genuine ability. He's tall. He's very two-footed. If you watch his game for Stepan, he scores goals with both feet as if it's just his stronger foot on both sides. So Yassine's a very good player. I think at 19 years old, it shows that it's not, first of all, it's not easy to get called up at 19 years old into the Iranian national team, but the fact that he has done that is a big testament to him. And it's a testament to Skočić that he's able to show some of these talents a little bit of, trust. And I'd love to see him debut at some point in these two games. I don't think he will, but, it's great that he's in the squad. I think he's going to do well for us in the future. So moving on to the rest of the players in this role, we have Javanbakhsh, Daniel. 3 players like Javanbakhsh, Goalkeepers, these guys were expecting to play at some point in these 2 games. How do you think that their experience playing in Europe is going to help this team, especially in these kind of early qualification rounds?
Well, as I said, the game against Syria is not. We don't have to. We shouldn't take it for granted, and we need experienced players like Javanbakhsh, Rodus, Olizade playing, and because we know that they have the talent and they have the knowledge and experience to do the job. And on Rodus, as you said before, like on the in the picking list, we have many central midfielders, and we know he can play there, like with in a 4-3-3 as a center midfielder. So
exactly.
We can debate on that many hours, but it's the picking list is maybe a bit weird. Even Salmani can play in a 4-3-3.
Yeah,
but actually, they're very important in the squad, and I'm happy that Javanbakhsh made a nice move going to Netherlands again. So, and Rodus even has had his first Premier League start. So everything is going well for those 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Pezhman, I'm going to speak about the other 2 players with you, Qaidi and Torabi. Off the bench, we obviously can make 5 substitutes in both matches, which is really beneficial. How do you think that they can impact the game coming off the bench?
I think they can be really useful, actually. We talked about Torabi before, like he's good, maybe really good, but doesn't know how to use his smartness, and moving to first the Arab League and then coming back to Iran. Maybe this is the best version of Torabi we can see, although we believe that he could do better. And he is, when he's in the right mood, when he's attacking and going one-on-one, he's a really dangerous and fun guy to watch. And against maybe a little bit weaker teams such as Syria, that can be good. I don't know how that works against more disciplined and tough teams such as South Korea. And Qaidi, I think his confidence is at the roof at the moment. He's done amazing, and I don't know if you heard the praise that he got from Farhad Majidi, the SFL coach, that he said he was our best player last year, and you never want to lose your best player, but at the same time, you don't want to be in the way of young players wanting to move abroad. So he understood him, and confidence, I think, is one of the key factors for all players, not just Iranians. So ID being like a super sub can be really interesting, and someone also praised him a lot, and he said like his technique is amazing, and he's great with the ball on his feet. So those 2 could be good substitutions, making it really difficult for defenders, like in the last 15-20 minutes where they maybe are tired and they can come in fresh.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, moving on to the forwards. Not surprising, we have Sadr Osman, Taremi, and Ansari Fard. Guys, I mean, there's not really much to say. They have to score goals for us. Simple as that. Taremi will probably start the game against Syria on his own. Maybe Ansari Fard will start, although I don't think he should, because then we'll be left with no natural number 9s on the bench. So I think Taremi is going to start up front on his own. I reckon he'll go with the same lineup he played against Cambodia when Osman didn't play that match. I don't know if he was suspended as well. I can't remember. I think he was suspended as well. So essentially, I think we'll go with the same lineup we played against Cambodia. Izzatullahi, Nurullahi, and Quddus in the midfield. Zoudeh and Javanbakhsh beside Taremi. So regardless, I think it will be a strong lineup against Syria. We're going to preview that match in a minute. But I just think ultimately they have to score goals. As simple as that, Pezhman?
Yeah, and Taremi, Osman, we won't see them in the first game, probably in the second game. I do believe that Karim Ansari will simply take Osman's place. I don't think that Taremi will be left up there alone. Maybe that happened during the Kerosh era, but we've seen two strikers much more often now, and both are really dangerous in the box. I just wonder how they can find each other the way that Osman and Taremi did. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they have different instructions. I think playing outside Fard isn't, a super weakness just because it's not Osman. I do believe that he can do really good, and he's a dangerous player as well. But will he get the 90 minutes? Probably not.
Daniel?
Well, I think it's quite risky to go with only 3 strikers because Osman, after his suspension, he will play alongside Taremi, so we'll have only Ansari Fall left. And as we said, if one of them gets injured, then you have only 2 strikers and you have both of them on the pitch. And for the first game, you only have 2 on the 3. So yeah, it's a bit it's hard to explain the logic behind it, but it is like that. And but I think they all do the job. I believe Taremi he became a leader in the group. We talk about the absence of Hajsafi, which is unfortunate because he made a great move going back to Greece. I think it's the perfect, it was now or never, because he's getting old and he can still do a great season there and be fit and give everything to the national team. We know he has a lot to give yet, a lot, I don't know, but he has to give his experience. He did a great assist last game. So, but yeah, fortunately we have other leaders as the like of Taremi or Ansari Fard or Bayron Van, players that played many times for the national team.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so moving on, we're gonna have a little short segment, interview with Saeed Joudeh from Winman.com. Okay, I'm joined by Saeed Joudeh from Winman.com, who was previously here for our Group A analysis episode. He's here to speak about the Syrian national team. Saeed, how you doing, my friend?
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, or whatever was. I'm very good. I'm very well. What about you?
Very well, thank you. Glad to have you back on Bezan podcast. I want to ask you regarding the Syrian fans. What are their thoughts on the match against Iran on Thursday?
Actually, we used to have a very competitive matches between Syria and Iran. They belong to the same Asian area, to West Asia, so they used to meet so many times. Now, according to the circumstances, as we spoke, if you remember before, 1 month ago, Syrian national team was not have a coach. Now they have Captain Nizar Mahrouz, Coach Nizar Mahrouz. Now everything is good. The preparation were good, not perfect, but actually it's good. According to Syrian people, they are hoping now by changing the coach, because it's a very well-known coach, Nizar Mahrouz, and he has his great career. So they are believing now that maybe they can win.
And on top of that, how is the Syrian national team looking ahead of the match?
As you know, Syrian national team will miss some of main important players in the squad. You hear that the famous Asian striker Omar Assoma will not be ready for the next two matches against Iran and maybe against UAE. Also in the defense we have some player will be missing as Ahmad As-Saleh and another names. In general, I think because of Corona circumstances, we can find that all the national teams are having the same problems, which is the missing. Also, I hear that the Iran national team also have the same problem. They are suffering from the same problem.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll speak about that as well on the podcast. Coming on to your prediction for the match, how do you think the game will go?
As I told you, that we used to have very competitive matches between these two national teams. I do believe by having a new coach for Syria and after the Doha preparation, because as you know there was a small or a short camp in Doha with Nizar Mahrous, with Omar Khribin and other names. I do believe that, and also with the circumstances of Corona, now the matches will take place in very well-known stadium. It's Azadi Stadium, but it will be in the silent mode, which means that there will be no crowd in the stadium, and maybe this will help the Syrian players to take the advantage and maybe started their qualifications with 3 points from Iran.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we do win the game.
Now we all do believe that in fair plays, let the good team win.
Yeah, of course.
As I told you, now after Coach Nizar Mahrous become the head coach of Syrian national teams, the hopes of the Syrian sports streets become more higher. We all know that it's not, as I told you, not a perfect preparation, but you know it will be tough game, and it will be played on so small detail.
Of course, Saeed, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you and your fans again. I'm waiting for the match and wish very good luck for all the teams.
All the best. Thank you. Okay, we're back. Appreciate Saeed's time. We're going to preview very quickly the game between Iran and Syria. Going to be played on Thursday in Azadi Stadium. There will be no fans in the stadium, as Saeed mentioned in his segment. He mentioned that, of course, you know, there won't be fans, so that could go in the favor of Syria because, of course, you know, Iran tend to do well when there's fans in the stadium. So, Daniel, what is your thoughts? Do you think that's going to make us struggle? How do you think the game will go?
Well, of course, playing at home without the fans, it's like playing in a neutral stadium. But I think regardless, they have to do the job. It doesn't help them. Like playing in Azadi with 100,000 people behind you is something like not comparable to playing in a neutral stadium. And the difficulties with the team in Asia is that we know each other very well. And Syria will be a team that will defend a lot. You said earlier in the pod that we drew both previous times in the previous World Cup qualifiers, once with a 0-0. It was really bad pitch and really bad conditions with a lot of rain. And the second time it was a 2-2, and we took our first goal in this World Cup qualifier. So it won't be an easy game. We should not take it for granted, but I believe the men will do the job.
I believe Syria will have a really tough time. Listen, the pandemic has gone on for a while now. The players are used to play in empty stadiums. Yeah, of course, everybody wants a full stadium, especially also the stadium. But I think the players are at such high professional state at the moment that I don't think that will make a major difference. It's a small difference, of course, I know that, but let's not forget the away game in both Syria and Iraq won't be in their home turfs either. You know, it will probably be in Qatar. So it's I think it's much harder for Syria and Qatar, these kind of games, because they have all away games. So for Iran, it's still beneficial.
Yeah, no, I think we'll beat Syria. I mean, look, the last time we played them before the friendly in March was, I think, a game under Mark Wilmots where we beat them 5-0, you know, and they are missing Omar Al-Soma. They're missing a couple of players. They recently had a managerial change, as Saeed mentioned. For me, I just don't think they got anything for us. I think we're too strong in all aspects of the pitch. I think our midfield is well above them, especially if Qudus starts. If Qudus starts, I just don't think Syria have any chance, because I think the creativity that he can provide the team is unmatched. And I think our defense is strong enough. You know, I think our defense is good enough. I think Kanoni and Khalilzadeh have done well together, even if I'm not a big fan of both of them. And Moharami is a good defender. You know, I think people have been critical of him sometimes, you know, they say maybe he's not so good defensively, but I think he is a good defender. Moharami, I think he is a really important player for the national team now. And I think we'll win the game. I really do. I think we'll do well. The game I'm more worried about is the one after against Iraq, I think, because they seem to have called up a very strong team with a lot of legionnaires. So we'll see how that goes. But I think this game should really be an easy game for us. When you look at it on paper, I don't see any issues personally. Okay, moving on to fan questions. First question comes from Hessam Dean on Twitter. He asks, what role can Yasin Salmani and Mohamed Karimi play in these two games? Personally, I think Mohamed Karimi won't play, but I think he's there to replace Ali Karimi. But I think it's important that we have these players in the squad, because it creates a little bit more familiarity from the players that aren't usually in the team. You know, it's very important that the players that aren't in the team normally, who come in as emergencies, get some, you know, familiarity with the squad. On Yasin Salmani, I think I would love to have him make a debut, but I just don't think Yasin Salmani will at this age. If he does, no doubt, I think he will do fantastically well. Coming on to the next question, mentality _YT. We've already covered your question, but should Abazadeh be a starter or not? Very quickly, we've already answered it, but we can answer it.
We answered it. Yes.
Yeah. Daniel?
Well, we'll see in a few months, but not for this game.
Not for this game, okay. That question was also asked by I Am Amir. We also had another question from Sina OGHO. He asks, should Ezatullahi start considering his recent poor performances in Denmark? For me, yes. I think he should start. I don't think we have another defensive midfielder in this team that can really match his quality, even if he's not playing well for Viola. And Viola Bold Club are doing quite poorly. They're actually in the bottom position in the Danish league. But despite that, with the lack of Hoysafi, the lack of Ali Karimi, I still think he should play.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And we saw it at the 2018 World Cup. Like, he didn't have a great season, many injuries. And but he came at the World Cup and he was suspended the first game. We saw the difference at the second and third game. Like, he's really talented. So, and he's giving everything for the national team. So it's not even a question for me. And we don't have any better alternative right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's someone asking regarding Iranian channels. We will post the link to the match before the game starts. What is your preferred? So that question was actually from Mohanad 83KO. Final question is from Kurosh Zahednia. He asks, what is your preferred starting lineup against Syria? And your prediction. So my prediction, first of all, I think we'll win the game 3-0. Same as we did in March. I think the lineup that I would like to see is actually the one I posted on my Twitter. If you want to go check it out, it's Arya _Allahverdi. It's Beiran van den goals, Moharami, Khalilzadeh, Kanani, and Amiri at left back. The midfield three of Ezatullahi, Qudus, and Nurullahi. Front three of Javanbakhsh, Khalilzadeh, and Taremi. For me, guys.
Well, I think it will be the same lineup. And my prediction is a win, of course. The only thing is that maybe Amiri could play in midfield, and so Salmani or Nurafkan could take his place as the left back. But I don't think so.
We have a final question here from my Twitter in Swedish as well. It's from Navid DL. He's saying, how close is Samorodus to the starting 11 after his last 2 games at Brentford?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. I do believe that Odus, he actually played good in the game he started for Brentford in the Premier League, and I do believe if he won't start, he will probably be one of the first subs, and he's got Skočić eyes on him, and I think that's really important to have a player that's a coach that trusts you, that sees you, that confirms you. And the thing is, maybe it's if he's going to choose between Odus or Javanbakhsh, or is it Odus and Amiri, or Odus Olizadeh? I think he will be number 2 in all of those choices at the moment, to be honest. So maybe he'll start the second game if he makes a good substitutions. That's what I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start, but I think he should start, is what I'm trying to say. But we'll see. Okay. I think we can finish off there. I don't really think we have much else to add other than remember that we have our Twitter spaces before the match on Twitter. So it's a live Twitter space, so you can come on and give us your thoughts on the lineup. So if we didn't answer your question, or if you wanted to ask a question but you didn't put it on Twitter, you can ask us the question on live Twitter space before and after the match. We have an article that will be on our website, goalbazanpodcast.com. Before the match, it will be out within the next couple of days. Just a preview of the game and more information about teams and the times of what time the matches will be played at. And finally, we'll have interviews with some players that I could maybe name. We can say this one. We can say that the players that we're looking to try and interview, I think we're very close to doing so, are in the squad. So you can, if you want to guess who it is, you can tweet that at Goalbazan on Twitter. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the Twitter spaces, and also an analysis after the game and previewing the Iran versus Iraq game. Thank you for listening. Take care.
Thank you.
Ciao.
My name is Allahyar Sayyadmanesh. You are listening to Bezan podcast.